Alright, today we're going adding and subtracting decimals. So we're going to stay on the decimal path and we're working on adding and subtracting. It's all about the place value. We covered that in the last video, place value. And what that means, remember place value. If I had a number like 23 and 46 hundredths. Place value tells me the 3 is in the ones, the 2 is in the tens, the 4 is in the tenths, and the 6 is in the hundredths. Alright. And so what I want to do when I add and subtract is I want to line up my place values. So let's say I have a number like 34 and 64 hundredths. And I want to add it to 1 and 2 tenths. I want to make sure my ones unit lines up with my ones unit and my tenths unit lines up with my tenths unit, and so on. The easiest way to do that is I line up the decimals. So I want to write it vertically, and I want to write it as 34 and 64 hundredths plus I want to line up my decimal points. And you can see that lines up my ones and it lines up my tenths. Alright? And then from there I kind of fill in open spaces with zeros and I can add. But the hardest part to remember is to line up your place values, alright, or get that decimal kind of in a common line, alright, and that can just drop straight down and you add as normal. So what I want to do is just go over probably 4 examples and then we'll be done. Let's try this one. We want to go 23 54 hundredths and plus 4 and 56 hundredths. So I want to write them out vertically, 23 and 54 hundredths. Plus, and I want to make sure my ones line up with my ones, my tenths line up with my tenths. And remember, the easiest way to do that is line up the decimal points. So 4 and 56 hundredths. Then we can say that's 10, carry my 1 over, that's 11, drop that decimal point, carry the 1, that is 8, and that is 2. 28.1. Alright? And that kind of makes sense. If you look at it, it should be some number close to 23 plus 4. Alright? You should have some number that's about 23 and about 4. You add them together, and that gives you 27. So this 28 makes sense. We don't want to end up with a number like 281. That'd be wrong. So make sure we're paying attention where the decimal point goes. Let's try the subtraction problem. Subtraction works the same way. So we have 4 and 564 thousandths minus 852 thousandths. So 4 minus 2, we can see we lined up those decimal places. Tenths line up with tenths, hundredths lines up with hundredths, thousandths line up with thousandths. Then we subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. 6 minus 5 is 1. 5 minus 8 can't do that, so we're going to take this, borrow the 1. That gives me 7. Drop that decimal point, and that gives me 3. And there we go. 3.712. Line up those decimal places. Here we go, another adding one. 3 and 874 thousandths plus 4.9. We want to line up the ones with the ones, tenths with the tenths. And actually what I like to do is fill in those open spots with zeros. There's nothing under the 7, put a 0 there. Nothing under the 4, put a 0 there. Then we add 4 plus 7, 17, carry the 1, drop that decimal point, and we get 8. So 8.774, 8 and 774 thousandths. And that's my answer. Last example that we have, 56 and 7 tenths minus 23 and 845 thousandths. We'll line up the 1 with the 1, so again, lining up the decimal place gives me 23, 845. Now we have some open spots. Nothing's over this 4, so I'm going to put a 0. Similarly with the 5, put a 0. I have to borrow, make that 10. That makes this 9, and that makes that 6. So that's 5. That's 5 as well. I have to borrow, you get 16. and that gives me 8, 2, 3. Sweet. 32 and 855 thousandths. So remember, we're going to line up those decimal points. Big thing when we add and subtract is line up the decimal points.